Hey, so welcome back to the channel and more of my ongoing Me Too series. I promised to do a short series of videos that gave some explanations and just some highlight points, and I think this is a really important one to bring up. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I heard someone else mention it the other day. So that had me say to myself, aha, an important and pertinent point. So, in male psychology, there's an idea that I'm going to call a false equivalence. And I think most people, if they listen to this just at face value, would come to the idea that it is a false equivalence, but it's a really important thing. How most men in an examination of Me Too have sort of the chessboard set up is an idea that says what happens to women's bodies is an equivalent of what happens to men's money. Let that sink in for a second. Take a breath if you need to. Most men hold it to be true that what happens to women's bodies is the equivalent of what happens to men's money. Let's break that down a little bit. What the heck am I talking about? If you look at the way that most men, especially disgruntled men, will talk about divorce, and you'll hear a lot of this in the men's rights movement and the idea of being red-pilled. The way that most men think about this is that everything in the legal system is stacked against them because a woman who is divorcing them can get a divorce settlement that takes part of what he considers his money. Men look at the idea of the money they earn as sometimes their only value as a man. And if a woman is able to take what they consider their money, not family money, not money to provide for family and children and household, but their money as men, if she's allowed to take that or get a custody setup that he doesn't like, or get some sort of alimony arrangement or child support arrangement that he considers to be taking his money, that man will assert that part of his value has been attacked because she got part of what he considers belongs to him. Love it, hate it, repulsed by it, lots and lots of men feel that way. What they will do that I'm calling the false equivalence is in terms of Me Too, and particularly rape and sexual assault and sexual harassment in the workplace that sort of, really discombobulates a woman's ability to earn a living. Men will look at that as being equivalent, particularly around the area of rape, and say, well, what happened to her body can't, that's no more traumatizing than, my ex-wife getting most of my money. So in order to understand a lot of what's going on in the Me Too movement, you have to understand that internally men are making this equivalence, even if they don't want to say it out loud. In an examination of the Me Too, not the Me Too movement, but go back to what happened to Matt Lauer. After Matt Lauer was sort of called out for his behavior, what I started to hear were some things that would not have made sense had I not known that men were making that equivalence. But there were things that happened around Matt Lauer that were very disconcerting in terms of men's lack of empathy or care in regards to what had happened to the women around Matt Lauer. One of the things that the men didn't seem to care about at all was this idea of the lock on his door. Most women were horrified and terrified when they heard about the lock on his door. And one of the things that was brought out in that situation was, by and large, the female employees of the company did not know about this lock on his door. The men reacted to it by saying, well, yeah, so what? I mean, most male executives want some kind of lock on the door so that they don't have to get up from their desk and lock the door. They had absolutely no ability to hear that fact was utterly terrifying to the majority of the women who heard about it. Because it never occurred to men that women would feel unsafe in that circumstance. How could it not occur to men, right? I mean, it's like, that's the obvious question that comes out of it. But if you look at this false equivalence of what happens to a man's money is equal to what happens to a woman's body, what men aren't considering is that, let's say a man loses a bunch of money in something like a divorce settlement or some kind of legal case where he has to pay it out. He can go make that money back. He can go find a way to replace that money. What men don't understand, and I say men don't understand this because they don't want to consider this part of it. Men don't understand what rape does to a woman because men don't want to put themselves in the place of being raped. Men don't want to consider what being raped would do to them. If you ask most men, would you rather be raped or give up a chunk of your money? You know, I for one would be interested in hearing their answer, but they don't do that because it's too unsettling to them. For most men who hear that question, they're horrified and they want to back up from it. They don't want to consider that possibility. They want to keep deflecting onto this idea of what happens to a woman's body is equivalent to what happens to a man's money. I say that's bunk. Having been through these situations, what I know is I lost 10 years off of my life. Functionally speaking, I lost 10 years off of my life. I have no way to replace that 10 years off of my life. Doesn't matter how much money I earn. It doesn't matter how financially successful me and my company become. I do not have a way to put that 10 years back on my life. Men have the ability to earn more money. How do I know that? Because women have the ability to earn more money. Everybody has the ability to earn more money. But you don't have the ability to generate more time on your life. No matter how healthy I am, no matter how well I take care of myself, no matter how I manage my diet, my sleep, my exercise, and every single other matter having to do with my genetics and my mitochondria, I cannot add 10 years back onto my life. If men aren't willing to consider that, I say ask them, would you choose to be raped or give up a certain amount of money? And make them answer it. Get them to actually answer the question. If we are going to continue to believe that it's okay for men to set that standard without giving women the opportunity to speak to it like I'm doing now, then we are never going to get the ball down the field on ending workplace sexual harassment. We're